From Lewis in the Black Horse Pub. Mike on first. Good morning, and it's the 29th of November, 2023. It is bang on 8 o'clock. I'm sitting here in solitary splendor, except that Declan is off behind me, studying the day's booze list. So if you come in during the day to have a drink, you'll know that it's well thought out. Good reason to come to the Black Horse. Apart from which, we've got the new chef and we've got the new food. And it is bloody good. It is indeed. So all the more reason for finding a reason to go to the pub today. Ha ha ha! Well now, first of all, why don't I tell you what the weather is? It's oh dear, it hasn't come up. There we go. The weather is oh, that's a summary. What on earth is it doing? There we go. No, it doesn't. There we go. Now, it's only going to reach 6 degrees today, and that's true of the rest of the week. Thursday, 6 degrees. Friday, it's going to plummet to 4 degrees. The only thing is that it's not going to be that cloudy on Friday or Saturday. There's going to be lots of sun around, a bit of cloud, but a lot of sun, but cool. -3 degrees to start to the day. Heating up a bit on Sunday when I have my wonderful roast lunch here at 6 degrees, but rain again, unfortunately. And then next week, oh gosh, we start the week with a scattered cloud, and then on Tuesday and Wednesday, no cloud at all, although the temperature is not going to go much above 7 degrees. There you go. That's what it's all about this week. We are in plenty of time to catch the 1 or 2 rays of the sun that we're likely to have today. And you can do so with a beer in your hand. Yeah, come on down to the Black Horse. That's the place to be. Right now, we better start to look at the newspaper headlines, which we quite often do at this time of day. And I must say that it's a very funny mixed bag this morning. And so I better sort of go through gently with you, I think. I'm trying hard to find what we need to illustrate the... There we go. That's one of them. There. Now, the Royals are taking up all the headlines this morning, and it's I think a storm in a teacup. But you know, I suppose you have to look at it as if it was the American president or Mr. Putin, we'd all be reading with open mouths about what's alleged, and that's what's happening here. There's a royal race row, and the pressure is on the Prime Minister again over migrants. So in the Metro, we've got book fiasco names a royal racist. And what that's all about is a new book on rifts in the royal family by Harry's speechwriter and book writer continues to make headlines. The Metro leads on the news that a Dutch translation of Endgame by Omid Scobie, which has since been withdrawn from sale, reportedly names a senior royal accused of racism by the Duchess of Sussex. Ah, right. In fact, I understand that they pulped some of it. The Mirror, new Harry and Meghan row. A book names Royalists. Thousands of copies pulped after senior family members incriminated. The Daily Mirror says thousands of copies are being pulped in the Netherlands after implicating a senior royal in the racism row. Its front page also features a plug for a piece on the Elgin marbles, which are back in the news, following a spat between Rishi Sunak and the Greek Prime Minister on Monday. Now, this business of pulping the copies in Denmark, I suspect that signals that they can't prove what the book says, because otherwise it would not be libelous and it would just go on sale. I can't believe that royals have got the power to pull a book that tells the truth. So that makes it suspect in my book. The Daily Mail, Scobie book pulled for naming royal racist by mistake. Sales halted in Holland after a Dutch version appears to identify family members who allegedly asked about Archie's skin color. The Dutch translation of Endgame named a royal accused of asking about the skin color of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, then the child that was still then unborn. The name was printed by mistake. Were put on hold at the 11th hour. The author, Omid Scobie, later suggested he had not put the name in any version of the book. Oh dear, an editor has been at work. Oh ho ho, that's going to be a row in itself. The Daily Express, Royals united against mischief-making smears. The Daily Express focuses on other claims in Endgame, quoting unnamed royal sources as saying reports of a rift between King Charles and Prince William are mischief-making and describe their relationship as strong as ever. The Eye, Jenrick goes rogue with a dig at number 10 on migration. Robert Jenrick, is the new immigration minister. And he's saying that at number 10, according to its front pages, according to the Eye, he's saying that he's frustrated by the efforts to cut the number of people coming to the UK by the government. He said they're not tough enough. The newspaper, The Eye, says his comments, which were made in the House of Commons, so he's got privilege, risked breaching collective responsibility. In other words, governments band together to sing the same tune when they've got something controversial. The Times, the Greeks accuse the Prime Minister of losing his head in a row over the Elgin marble. Well, that's a pun, because the Elgin marbles are only the head of horses. But the main story is the call to close a visa route for cheaper foreign staff. Another immigration story takes the main slot on the front page of the Times. It says Rishi Sunak is under pressure to scrap a system where visa rules are relaxed for certain professions facing shortages. It comes after new figures were released last week, showing record levels of migration to the UK, which prompted disquiet among some Tory MPs. The Daily Telegraph, patients at risk from virtual GP sessions. A study by the British Medical Journal has found patients are being put at risk by phone and online appointments. The Telegraph says the practice is leading to misdiagnoses and delayed referrals. Its main cover image is of Meg Bellamy playing a young Princess of Wales in The Crown. Oh yeah, Meg Bellamy is obviously an actress. She skipped me by. Let me make a comment on this because I, at the moment, am being treated on the phone, and I understand, and I have had frustrations in the past, not so much by on the phone as a receptionist asking whether I was ill enough to see a doctor. That's really what sticks in my craw. At the moment, I've got a lovely young doctor at the local surgery, and she calls me about once every 3 weeks to make sure I'm okay. She calls me. Now, that is beyond the call of duty. And if you think it's because of my good looks, just take a look, see whether you possibly could think that it's my good looks. Is there. Do you think that she's attracted by my good looks? No. At 84, I'm starting to fade. Let's go back to the king. And the really what I have against is as I say, the intermediary. I am well looked after by a young doctor, and she thinks, and she asks me all the things that she would ask me in the surgery. However, I have to say that a doctor friend of mine, who is a former head of practice here in Lewis, says that medicine isn't all about computer screens and phone calls. Doctors get to know their patients, their long-term patients, and can tell whether they're ill or not, and what, in some instances, their treatment should be. And I must confess, is my Parkinson's was diagnosed that way. And so I'm very much for being seen by a doctor and not seen either on a screen or by telephone. But there you are, is the study now that some people are at risk, and I can well understand that. The Sun, they stole her voice. Hamas threats to my family 9 made her too afraid to speak, says a father of a girl who was held hostage. The Sun leads on an emotional interview with the father of Emily Han, a 9-year-old who was released after 50 days as a Hamas hostage. Her Dublin-born father tells the paper she is barely able to speak after being ordered by her captors to stay silent while she was detained. I would imagine that that is a psychological blow that could happen. Financial Times. Barclays looks at ditching thousands of the least lucrative investment bank clients. In other words, they ain't making us enough money, get rid of them. I always understood until the lockdown, until we now are seeing banks disappear at a great rate of knots from high streets. I always thought that the banks were expected to have a responsibility to the community. Obviously, they're not. And I think that the next time that they make a mistake overseas and they come cap in hand to the government for our money, that we say, bugger off. I see no reason why, with the responsibility and care that they have shown to the average man in the street, that we should give them 1 penny of our money to get them out of a mess. And there are some banks which we nominally still own because they have public money supporting them, despite the fact that, for instance, Lloyd's, I'm only picking on Lloyd's because it happens to be my bank, Lloyd's has profits of, I think it was £2 billion last year. And that's a lot of money. Even still today, 2 billion is a lot of money. And those are their profits. And we still have a stake in it. Well. The FT reports Barclays is said to be looking to overhaul its investment wing in order to cut £1 billion in costs. The main image is of Nikki Haley, who has been handed a big boost in her bid to challenge Trump for the Republican presidential nomination by winning the backing of influential billionaire donor Charles Koch. Well, I think that Trump is going to be the president again anyway. I think they lost faith in Biden. Daily Star. Ah ha ha. Let's get a giggle. Man flu, it is real. TV's number one naturalist, Chris Packham, blasts Ant and Dec over animal abuse. You're a daft pair of witchetty grubs, it says. Packham has criticized ITV's I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here over its treatment of insects. Says the Star. The paper carries the story alongside an image of hosts Ant and Dec. Actually, a misprint there. It says and Dec. Well. So there we are. Those are the newspaper headlines, and it should. I don't know. To me, whether the royals are yelling at one another or not is at one time they could do that and nobody would dare say anything about it. Now in the modern era, they dare say anything about it, and now they make the fuss, which I don't think should be made. Wouldn't want it said about me. Why would the king want it said about him? And why should he necessarily? Because he's a very prominent person? Well, yes, I suppose that there's that. But to be quite honest with you, I think it's dull and boring stuff. Dull and boring. Much more to the point is the main story, which is the other lead story, of people coming in as cheap labor and getting visas, which swells our unemployment levels because they don't last for very long. But also, once they're here, getting rid of them is very difficult. So they add to the inflated immigration figure. Should that be done? Well, I'm not in a position to say these things. Position to say them. I'm not in a position to do anything about them. But one way or another, it would be good, I think, if we sorted out this immigration lark once and for all. The trouble is that every time somebody says do this, somebody else says human rights, human rights, human rights. It's for God's sake. I don't see us torturing people in the streets here. I don't see us locking people up for no reason other than political. I don't see us beating the brains out in demonstrations. Well, yes, sometimes the police have to get a bit heavy, but that's because the demonstrators have got heavy. I don't see any of those things. And therefore, immigration isn't as big an issue in terms of being selective as I would think it should be. Where is selective? The United States. Try getting into the United States. Canada. Try getting into Canada. Australia. Try getting into Australia. They are all selective systems. But if we try one here, woo, dear. Can't do that. Why not, I ask? Why not? It's not sensible to fill the country to bursting point so that infrastructure is at the seams. At all. Okie dokie. Let us now, if we can, we'll go to, if I can find it. A bit of a documentary. Here's a bloody episode, part two. We played that on Friday, I think, or Monday. I think we'll play it again because those of you who haven't seen it, this is a very popular program. So here we go. The bloody past of a tiny town. This is our town.
Lewes increased in importance as the Norman occupation took hold. Not that it wasn't important before that. In Saxon times, the town had 2 mints.
And in case my pronunciation confuses you,
those are places where coins were made, not a sweet that is eaten to try to disguise what you've been drinking. The now much larger cathedral town of Chichester only had 1 mint, which not only indicated the importance of Lewes, but started a sort of battle of popularity between the two places. The struggle for the rights to hold assizes, for example, created a tug of war that saw Chichester hold trials for a while, only for Lewes to get them back. Lewes won. The Crown Court and Lewes Assizes are still local in town, and they ain't going nowhere. Mighty though the Norman castle was, it was dwarfed by the Cluniac Priory, just across this small valley. William de Warenne, who actually fought at the Battle of Hastings, was granted Lewes, along with lots of other goodies, as the spoils of war. His wife Gundrada, a religious lady, asked for and got a sponsorship to establish the priory, just 20 years after England was conquered. Henry VIII's chief vandal, Thomas Cromwell, pulled it down in 1547. Doing the bidding of the king who had fallen out with Rome over his love life. But the workmen of the 11th century were first-class masons, and some of these buildings have lasted to this day. Look at that, almost 1,000 years old. It wasn't just Henry and Thomas who were vandals. The good burghers of Lewes did their part over successive centuries, digging up the grounds and using the stones to build their garden shed. By the time it was destroyed, the priory dominated the Lewes skyline. Its great church was immense, and the whole complex had its own hospital, dormitories, dining hall, and a wharf. Boats sailed up to the priory to carry and fetch goods.
how times change. This river, the Winterbourne, carried ships and barges up to the docks in the priory. Nowadays, it would barely carry a paper boat.
The priory was vitally important to the local economy, bringing in goods and attracting important visitors.
The ship would have actually come very near to the edge of where the tennis courts are. That's where, because you've got the Cockshoot river or stream which fed into the Ouse, and then yes, there would have been a wharf here from which they unloaded all the stones that they used to build the priory. Because what we see now is a lot of the infill. It's like the cavity walling of the priory. The outside, the dress stone, which is now used in places like Southover Grange, came from Carr on Caen, so it all had to be imported. It was a significant part of the town. It started small with only 4 monks, but over the course of about 400 or 500 years, the numbers swelled. The maximum number we had was probably about 100 monks. But the church, the big church that was built in the 14th century, was bigger than Chichester Cathedral. It was massive. It would have dominated the skyline in Lewes, so it was incredibly important. And it looked both ways. It looked inland because Lewes was the mother priory for other Cluniac monasteries in the UK, and it also looked towards Europe with its mother house in Cluny. We do a lot of education work with a whole range from tiny children up to adults to get them interested in different aspects of the priory. And the trustees of Lewes Priory Trust are very keen that it's always open and free access, and it's a beautiful place that everybody can come to. They can learn about the history, they can sit in our herb garden and contemplate, and we've just started a new kitchen garden which will grow vegetables, and again this is for the community to get involved in, so it's very much based in the community of Lewes.
But there's nothing like a bit of competition to stir the blood of a true Lewesian. And sometime in the 15th century, a big fight is recorded between the bailiffs of the town and the prior's men in a local tavern. One of the 63 pubs that once existed in the town, no doubt. It was walled in 1275, and a fat lot of good it did. When de Montfort's troops attacked, they swept into the town with no trouble. That then caused the town's nobility to strengthen them. They remained intact from then for some centuries, when they came down to the hammers of developers as the town grew. Entry to the town was by 3 gates, north, south and west, each now remembered through the name and a few remaining stones where the wall had been. The walls may have gone, and most of the priory. But many buildings in Lewes have stood the test of time and the vandalism of kings. This church was originally a hospice attached to the priory, and this was an early hospital from the same period. And Cromwell wasn't daft enough to pull down a Tudor manor which Henry had given as part of a divorce settlement. He kept Anne of Cleves' house for himself. Within the town walls, the building has more than stood the test of time. St Michael's was the original castle church, built about 1240. It's the parish church of the town. Hamilton, on one of the walls. Lewes is close to the coast and open to attack from French marauders, who regularly attacked the coast. On occasion in the 16th century, ships sailed up the Ouse far enough for them to be spotted from inside the town. This noble knight depicted here was renowned for his courage in seeing them off. Later, revolutionary Tom Paine was married here, before decamping to the Americas. And its spiral tower is one of the few surviving in the UK.
Before we disappear into the folds of one of Lewis's hostelries,
there's one more legacy from Henry's break with Rome. His successor, Queen Mary, wanted to restore the Roman Church to England, and she was very vicious towards dissenters. 17 people who refused to give up their beliefs or had read the Bible in English were seized and thrown into a dungeon in Lewes. In November 1545, they were marched up these stairs out to a stake and put in tar barrels. Burning to death in that way was a very horrible way to die. One more chapter in the bloody Lewes High Street saga. This act of savagery has not been lost in the mists of time, however. The 17 martyrs, as they're known, are remembered on November the 5th in the biggest bonfire ceremonies of any Guy Fawkes night in the world. 7 bonfire societies stage a joint procession through the town, torches blazing, effigies of Guy Fawkes, and of so-called enemies of bonfire, those who have behaved badly in the year, pulled on carriages stuffed with fireworks. It's a colourful and impressive procession, but with an underlying commemoration of the 17 dead. The parade stops at the town's war memorial for the laying of wreaths to the fallen. Prayers are said. Banners extolling the names of the martyrs are held high. And rousers, or better known to us as bangers, are freely thrown around as the people march. It's a colourful parade.
and I feel underdressed, with just one of my hats to show off. But bonfire, as it's known locally, is not the only memory of bloody Lewes.
It suffered a far worse fate from a hidden foe, the Black Death.
On Bloody Red to Deadly Black. Next episode, how rats destroyed a major port and brought more historical carnage to Lewis. Until then, a bloody goodbye. Poor old Lewis. I need a drink.
What do you do? That microphone has got a mind of its own. Off it went. A little promo to show you who we are and what we're doing. And we've got the day underway. We wish Richard Barton well. Just a little bit under the weather. And he a mainstay of Mirador now. I have to tell you that we met on a bus, believe it or not, as you do, and got talking, liked one another, and I liked his abilities, and he then brought in Philip, and the two of them now dominate the early morning programs, not only with a fund of knowledge, but also with a lot of humour and pulling one another's legs. Let's just delve a bit deeper into the newspapers now. Scobie's Pulp Fiction is the headline in The Sun, which reports on a book bundle which has seen a new royal expose pulled from shelves in the Netherlands. When they say the shelves, they've been taken off. In other words, they're not for sale anymore. The paper says a highly defamatory statement. Well, if it's defamatory, it means it's not true and can be proven not true. So that's Pierce Harry's book straight away. In Endgame by Omid Scobie mistakenly names the member of the royal family who allegedly made an offensive comment about the skin colour of Archie, the son of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, before he was born. But the paper says the claim in question ended up in the Dutch version of the book due to a mistranslation. We didn't know that, did we? The Daily Mail condemns the book as a parody of the truth, which is oozing with bile and toxic nastiness, it says. Oh, I love those words. Oozing with bile, toxic nastiness. You can't get more expressive than that. Royal sources tell the Daily Express that the book's claims of a rift between King Charles and the Prince of Wales are just mischief making. I must say they seem to get along all right together whenever they appear in public. The Eye reports Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick went rogue in the House of Commons on Tuesday with what it describes as a dig at number 10 on migration. Something that is bothering a lot of MPs. And the reason they're bothering a lot of MPs is it's bothering a lot of us. And it doesn't seem that much, everything that this government has tried has turned to dust. And what I think everybody believes is that Rishi Sunak, as Prime Minister, has got to get a grip. Let me tell you what our view is here, is that we are being governed by a bunch of second-raters. They are politicians, probably competent politicians, but that's all. But because of all the silly nonsense surrounding Boris, we actually got a bunch of people in charge who really are out of their depth when it comes to running the country. That is our opinion, not fact. Please check your facts. You might want to take into account our opinion. The Sun has an interview with the father of a 9-year-old Irish-Israeli girl who has returned to her family after being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. Tom Hand says his daughter, Emily, traumatized that she's barely able to speak, saying she was terrorized by terrorists in hell. The paper's headline is, "They stole her voice." The poor 9-year-old barely able to talk because she'd been told that if she does, she'll be badly treated. Should they stay or should they go? Asks the Daily Mirror of the Parthenon sculptors after what the Times calls a diplomatic standoff between the UK and Greece. That's all about the Elgin marbles. Should the Elgin marbles be returned to Greece because they were purloined at our great days of empire? The paper says ministers in Athens believe Rishi Sunak called off a meeting on Monday with his Greek counterpart with domestic political reasons in mind, but government sources suggest Mr. Sunak was infuriated by the comments by Kyriakos Mitsotakis about wanting the Elgin marbles to be returned to his country. According to The Guardian, the row raises fresh questions about fraught relations with the European Union. One senior Brussels official tells the paper that if you want to be a global Britain, you don't just stop talking with friends because of an issue that has been around for 200 years. Several of the other papers debate whether the sculptures should be returned to Greece. One columnist writes in the Times that they have been wrenched out of their context and would acquire their proper power. Let's go back. They have been wrenched out of their context and would acquire their proper power if they were put on display in Athens. Another in the Mirror says Britain has a special claim to the statues and that Lord Elgin had done the world a favour and saved them from possible destruction by buying them. We didn't purloin them, we bought them. I didn't know that. Rishi Sunak announced a series of pro-environmental policies in an article for the Daily Telegraph. On top of his plans for a new national park, he sets out projects to restore woods, peat bogs, wetlands and rainforests, and says millions of pounds of new funding will go towards getting children out into nature. He writes that it is deeply troubling that so many young people could face any connection to the natural world. Well, wowee. You never know where the rows are going to crop up. Actually, I must confess, is Rishi Sunak has not particularly pushed his green credentials. He's shown interest in environmental conferences. He's shown interest in the environment, but he's not really pushed his green policies that hard. Now it would appear with this latest initiative, which is one that I would approve of personally, of recreating a lot of the things that we've destroyed over the years. But as long as the housing policy stays the same, we're in trouble. Everybody must have a house. And not only that, but it must be built on green land. That's crazy. There is lots of brown land. Brown land is land that's already been used. And it's safe brown land. Some brown land, yes, has had toxic chemicals and other materials on it and isn't safe. And those we must avoid. But at the moment, we're building on green land which is on floodplain and likely to be washed away within a few years. What sort of sense does that make? There's no joined up thinking when it comes to the housing issue. Build more, build more, build more. And the real estate lobby is big enough and hard enough and forceful enough to push things through. Now, that is no reason for anything, because a lobby, in its own self-interest, believes that a policy should be followed. No reason whatsoever. We've got to start to think strategically, and we don't think strategically. Incidentally, I ranted and raved on Monday about the treatment by a job's worth of a 97-year-old woman for feeding the birds in her garden. And it reminded me, I've worked around the world. And for some reason, when it comes to the civil service, we try to find the people least suited to doing the job. I've worked with the civil service of many countries, of the United States as well as ourselves, and as well as other overseas countries. And for some reason, we managed to find the least suitable, the least to what it is that they're trying to do, and the least capable of carrying them out. I actually went for an interview with DFID. That's the Department for International Development. I went for two people, and I'd just come from the place where this post was being advertised. I didn't know what they were talking about. They had got everything so wrong, and yet they were in charge of choosing somebody to go out and fill this post. It was crazy. I came out thinking, my God, I should alert those people in that country at what they're likely to get. When you don't know, what you do is you shut up and give it to somebody who does. But the level of our civil service when it comes to working in overseas posts is abysmal. We have ambassadors who wander around with bare feet and two wives to try and show just how modern they are. God help me. We may be that modern, and if we want to put up with that sort of thing, that's fine. But people overseas are much more traditional, look for much firmer standards than that. And for us to actually put such people in makes us look as a nation stupid. It loses us respect. It's about time that we actually change the whole system. The Americans aren't any better. I've worked for USAID. Do you know what they spend most of their time doing? Hiding the fact that they misspent money from any visiting congressman. Now terrified of being found out for the stupid things that they've done. At least they actually recognize that they've done stupid things. But can you imagine spending all your time worrying that a senator or a congressman is going to walk in and take a look and say, oh my God, what are you doing here? That is presupposing, of course, that their senators and congressmen are not as thick as they are. But that's how we choose. And there is no suggestion of reform. And as a consequence, what happens is we actually screw things up, and then our politicians turn around and say, oh dear, look at the trouble we've got into in this place. Trouble, I may say, that we created. How do we resolve it? The way to resolve it is not to induce it in the first place. We need to actually take a very, very firm and strong look at this issue, because there are big money at stake. Look at me. I had $6 million. And thank God there were pubs around. No, I had $6 million, and I did what was very sensible and what anybody in media would do to enhance a media program. And it was always held under question by people in the civil service, in this case, the American civil service, who are only concerned is if you filled the form in correctly. It didn't matter whether, in fact, it was the right policy. Have you filled in the form properly? Talk about idiocy. Anyway, those are the things that we have to consider. And the reason that I'm mentioning that is because we managed to do the same thing locally. We managed to get the Jobsworths who bully 97-year-old people. Even more, they bully mentally stressed people, and that I can't forgive them for, and I've seen it. And what was it? Our MP was the only when I managed to get to talk to her, and when I managed to get to talk to her, and that's just pretty awful. The MP said, "You're doing a great job, Keith. Bye." They don't care. They really don't care. Oh well, such is life. Such is life. It is now just approaching 10 to 8. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back, possibly with Mark. Maybe I've asked him if he can move up a little bit. Because on a Wednesday we seem to get into a bit of a jam. Let's take a break now, and we'll see whether we can sort it all out. We'll see you back again in just a few minutes. So for the moment, let's go toodle pip, shall we? Yes, we shall. We'll go toodle pip, and then we'll be back refreshed. Oh ho, refreshed. Let's go. From Lewis in the Black Horse Pub.